I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. All right, big show today. I'm really excited for this one. We've actually been talking about recording this one for a while, but my guest, she's always so busy. So we're lucky she could make time for us today. It's all about social media on today's episode, the platforms that still work, the ones that don't, and how big brands are best at taking advantage of them. My guest today is Jewell. She started her career as a TV news reporter before transitioning into marketing and data science. Her vision is to solve problems through storytelling and data-driven strategies. Mega ran her own communications consulting company for years, and just a couple months ago, she actually joined up with Bospar. She's vice president for the company's social media department. So first off, Mega, where are you today?
I'm based in LA, but Eric, to your note, there will always be time for you. So there is no question about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're so busy. It's like we were going to do this a couple times, and Mega was, I got this big client situation, and we know, look, corporations, they all have to be on social media, and you're new to the company here, so all these companies, all these tech companies, they want to start figuring out social media. So Mega is the first person they have to call. So you're in LA today. That's where I'm from. I am not in LA anymore. I haven't been there in a long time. And obviously, the name of the podcast, Politely Pushy. Are you more polite or are you more pushy?
You know, that's a struggle internally, honestly, because I feel growing up, I'm from Indonesia. That's where I grew up, but I also grew up here. And so I feel like I'm doing the splits all the time between different cultures, right? You've got the American, which, group like schema wise, it's more aggressive, more forward, versus when I was growing up in Indonesia, it was very much don't question anything. So there's always this internal debate. However, I've found this freedom of who am I going to be? It's my life, right? It's the approach that I want to take. And I've come to find is being kind and being able to pay forward. Those are my fundamentals, and communicating effectively and candidly, just very straightforward, sometimes blunt even, is the way that I like to go. So I err more on the politely pushy in terms of like 70% polite, 30% pushy.
Oh, I like it. So you actually provide a data-based answer there. You've got a little bit of both. You've got a numerical answer. I like that. So your journey is from TV journalism to social media. It's almost like you got more modern, right? Some people go the other way. They go from something newer to something older, but you went from, all right, traditional media, I'm on TV, I'm doing those broadcasts, I'm driving around, I'm interviewing people, I'm doing the whole thing. And then you went to the much more modern, cutting edge stuff, data science, social media. Why did you do that? Was there a specific thing that happened where you said, you know what, TV's dead, TV's old, I need to start getting with the 21st century? Because I struggle with this myself. Was there a reason? Why is it? I mean, this journey from Indonesia to America, we can get into that, but you've got this hybrid thing, like you're in multiple worlds at the same time.
Sure. I think nowadays you just have to adapt very quickly and pivot. And when I started journalism, it was really what you said. How do we tell stories? How do you humanize different types of big stories and digest that, creating that in a digestible form on whatever platform. But I came to the realization, day in and day out in journalism, where I actually started working with my friends in journalism and TV and did some data research, looked at historical data, where I saw that numbers for TV viewership declined year over year. And so that's a big red flag to see, like, well, where is this industry pivoting? And and I don't know about you, but life kind of works really mysteriously. And I got introduced to my now husband, who is a engineer and a manager of engineers, who kind of opened the doors to tech. He explained to me how, APIs work, or how to build a weather app or whatever like that. But it just gave me this opening of, wow, there is so much to learn that I wasn't aware of. But I have this wonderful foundation of telling stories, being able to relate with people. And it just naturally transitioned into social, because it's like, how do you communicate with the masses all at once? It's a powerful tool.
Then how did you get so good at it, though? So it's one thing I'm interested in social media. I'm interested in pivoting. I'm being exposed to the more tech forward companies through my, now husband and the data driven world. But it's one thing to say, okay, I'm interested in it, and to say, I'm going to make this my career. I'm literally going to leave what I did, make this my career. Now I'm VP doing social media at a very high growth, pretty important Bay Area agency here, dealing with a lot of big tech companies. That, in a way, when you're a little bit later to the game, it's not like you said, I'm doing this straight out of college. You pivoted to doing it. So what do you think that you were good at that allowed you to move so quickly in that direction?
I do a lot of mentoring, Eric, on the side with, college students, people entering and pivoting into PR and stuff. One of the things that I share with them is that you have to be on your toes, and being curious is pivotal. So how are you curious about a specific topic or industry, whatever? Have fun with it also, but figuring out what's a problem or what's a situation that you can improve on, and then work from there. Figure out this puzzle piece and to really create that storyline. I mean, the bottom line is it's not necessarily formulaic, but there is a foundational element to this. What is your goal? What are those components of those goals? And what are those elements and tactics to get there, right? It's just like I operate very much in a bullet point form and going, okay, that's how I'm going to start. And everything else, the creativity just really it just like overflows. There's lots of graphics and videos and multimedia. Those are different elements. So it's just figuring out how the storyline, the puzzle piece comes together to be able to tell an impactful story via social, knowing your audience, knowing the goals, all of that is very important.
So I like that you said you think in bullet points. So I might have to get some bullet point answers from you. If you hear the phrase Facebook, what does that mean to you in 3 bullets?
Man, in 3 bullets for...
Like, let's say I'm a corporate CMO, right? Like, let's say that's our audience right now. Corporate CMO, they're trying to figure out how are we going to use all these different platforms to our advantage. So I'm going to go through one by one. When you hear Facebook, what does that mean to you?
Consumer, like user consumer data, moms, dad, families, fun, personal.
Twitter, what does that mean to you?
Fast speed, volume game, companies, media analysts, those types of categories. People who want quick and fast. Instagram, people who are captivated by visuals, stories that attract you, that really tell stories from the design element.
TikTok.
Oh, I struggle with this. Quick videos, obviously, but kind of like all over the place and fun.
LinkedIn.
B2B for sure. A place where thought leadership really is cultivated.
MySpace.
Oh my God, Tom. Wasn't it Tom? I cannot recall, but that's music. It's really pivoted that way.
I mean, that one was the big one. Right? Remember, it was Friendster at the very beginning before there ever was Facebook. What about Discord?
Discord, quick, live, fast games, like community.
Twitch.
Oh, I tried that when I was doing simulations and driving. Just an immersive experience to where you can not only join the conversation, but feel like you're part of that element as well.
Clubhouse.
When you're driving and you need to interact with people, but a really great place to hang out and have that audio form, especially when people are a bit more timid on camera. It's a little bit intimidating.
So all these different platforms, like you just mentioned so quickly, they have a completely different purpose, a completely different meaning, a different audience base. And you're dealing with all these companies, they're trying to reach people and they don't know what to do with social media. So are you finding that you are giving them the same advice over and over again? Is it just that they are not understanding these platforms, or they're doing too much, not enough, they're on the wrong platforms? Because I've been in meetings with you where companies are like, oh, no, we don't touch Facebook. Facebook's a waste of our time, or we're only on Twitter, or we're only doing this. There's a lot of absolutes in what they say, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily accurate.
I would say every conversation, every strategy is very different in terms of the approach, right? Because as you look at yourself and the people watching, you are unique to who you are. Your pain points, your value propositions, what you're looking for on social is so vastly different. And so that's really an important thing to identify, because, it might not necessarily seem like Facebook might be a good start for you or a good fit? Maybe. But let's dig under that and say, there are different people that we can build relationships with, and they might not necessarily convert to whatever the call to action or whatever the, KPIs are measured, but could they be the vessels to bring brand awareness to the company? There are different ways to get to your goal. So I would say really provide an open mind, or come in with a little bit more of an open mind. Let's look at the data of user demographics, user geography, whatever, and see if it fits. Because sometimes you gotta work with what you have and figure out different ways to get to your goal.
What's an example, just literally something that you've done in the last 24 hours, some data point that you've looked at on behalf of a client that you've been surprised about, or a conversation that you've had recently? Like, I'd love to get on the insides of, okay, what is the type of conversation that you're giving companies? Say, hey, look at this data. This is something that you should be doing more of or less of.
I think the challenge sometimes with a company social media is it's a company, right? It's
People
not a
hate
person.
companies on social media, right? I want to talk to a person.
Well, I wouldn't say hate companies, Eric. I would just say
we tolerate television commercials because we understand its purpose. But when I get on a Facebook, a LinkedIn, an Instagram, a TikTok, I want to see stories from people, right? Just normal people telling their story. And as soon as I get the ad, it's like, it's like I've been infiltrated by an ad, right? It makes it feel like I've lost the flow of the fun that I'm having, because like, oh, now someone's trying to sell me insurance, or they're trying to sell me something, right? I mean, do you find that that's a struggle? I mean, it's obviously a struggle. Like, companies are jamming their message in on the paid ads. The ones that are good, they're doing native content that is organic and gets growth that way.
So it's all about balance, right? It's a two-way street. It's a relationship. You give and you take, you give and you take. It goes back to the audience. Like, what do they care about? What do they want to hear? If they want to hear more of the product, awesome. But they also probably want to have a refresher, right? Content diversification, of having content that is inspiring, something that is educational, something that cultivates an ask or an engagement or a question, something that makes them think. So there are different ways that content can be developed and executed. Where one thing you asked, like a data point, I don't have it at the top of my mind. However, we have a company who's posting about their product and their offerings all the time, and integrating, hey, happy holidays. Here's a fun, ugly, sweater for the holidays. It really generated a lot of conversation because there are people behind it, right? It's the people who made the company. So those stories, yes, I would align with you. The stories of the people who work behind the company, who elevate the company, are really, really powerful. And that's one of the things that we do bring up, because that's what we want to hear. What's happening behind the scenes, So putting kind of more of a persona, a more attitude, or a feeling behind the company is very important.
It must be so frustrating for that company. We spent all this effort talking about our stuff and nobody engaged with it. And then we just put a, happy holidays, ugly sweater post, and that's what everybody cares about, right? There's got to be that tension of like, does anyone even care what we're doing here?
I can bet. I mean, I'm a big proponent that it only takes one to really kick things off.
Right.
And the one thing is like frustration, probably, but a relationship does also take time, right? Like, you don't trust me right off the bat unless, you have a referral or something, there's a connector, right? So that building that relationship, that consistency, the messaging that is going to be on point every single time, it's going to make a huge difference in the long run.
What are some brands that you admire for how they're using social? Who do you look at as an example when you go to clients and say, I want you to look at XYZ? Who are those companies?
Gosh, it's different for every category. Like, I have different passions and whatnot. I look at, for example, I have a dog. I have 3 dogs. And I look at different pet brands like Bark or something. And I look at what they're doing from the culture side of the company, because I'm making decisions that, if I'm buying a product for my family, I want it to have a good culture behind it, good mission behind it. Another one is Apple. I admire not only, their mission and vision and what they stand for, but also how they put their designs together. On social, on the different platforms that they have, because every little thing is so calculated and meticulous, and it's beautiful. even a box from social, and then getting some products in and opening this box for this iPhone, and the way that this box glides, like all of this stuff are like their touch points that they've thought through of how a user would interact with not only their product, but also the way that they interact with their platforms and on their communication channels. Like, I appreciate that someone who does that. And one more, oh my gosh, super obsessed about Lucid. Right now, because Lucid, oh my gosh.
Why?
Like, watch their UX video on this car, the way that they thought through their buttons and the digital components, how they marry, making sure that people who are maybe more of traditional will feel comfortable in a more, technologically savvy car. Not only just the fact that they have plus 1,000 horsepower, or they can have long ranges or whatever, but the way that they have their videos done, their social done, their user experience is like really top of mind. I kid you not, I cried watching their YouTube video.
You cried.
I cried.
You're in the business. You're in the social media business, and you see all of it. How you see the sausage making behind the scenes, and you cried.
I look at certain things even if it's like on social video components, I look at their shots, the clips that they choose. Why did they choose that over another one potentially? Why did they use a wider angle, or why did they use a drone video? All of that, those are like decisions people make, right? And so those are really critical to think that it might look very easy. It looks easy because they're so good at it. And that's one of the things that I really do appreciate about social. It's like it looks so seamless, but there's so much work to get to, your end goal. And it's a journey, really.
I was going to say, who are some brands that are doing it wrong? And I know you're not going to tell me any names.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but
everybody's got a different path.
Let's put it this way. What are some pet peeves that you notice that you just see, like, oh, I wish this company had a little better guidance? Or what are some mistakes that you see big branding companies make? You don't have to name them, but I'd be curious the mistakes that you notice from your perspective.
I'm a big proponent that, mistakes are experiences, experiences are we coined mistakes. So I would say people have their own path, right? That is the first question you asked me, polite versus pushy, whatever. Like, everyone's got their own journey. But one of the things that I really think that if folks really don't consider this, it's fundamentally, we are all humans and we're all connected somehow, and we thrive on those relationships. Social media is an avenue, very similarly to how we meet up with friends at the coffee shop, etc. It's that same parallel. It's just on a different platform. It's on a digital platform. If we don't focus on who we're talking to and understanding them, we might miss the ball. We might miss the mark, and the goals might not necessarily get there. And we try to throw things at it. We add this, we add that, but narrowing our focus down to, who are we trying to talk to? And how can we add value or solve their problem, or whatever the case might be? That's going to be a critical element. Second, trying to do too much. Sometimes focusing on one or two might be better than focusing on 10, especially when you don't necessarily have the resources.
One or two platforms?
Correct.
Okay.
One or two platforms. Because if you know exactly who you're talking to, you can layer an approach, right? For audiences, I'm going to target this one. I'm going to use LinkedIn for B2B first, get that audience on lock. Then I'm going to do more of the consumer. And this happens to be lifestyle, whatever. So we choose Instagram. So it's like layering that approach and focusing on one platform at a time, one audience at a time, probably might help with the strategic approach, and being able to kind of clear all the noise and focus on what really is.
Because I was going to ask, there's some companies where they post the same thing on all the platforms, right? Their Facebook has the exact same post as their Twitter, as their LinkedIn, as their Instagram, as their Google My Business page. It's literally just the same post. They have that, it's usually that image, right? It's like an image with a text box and a graphic.
Sure.
And they splash it everywhere. My guess is that's not that effective, but maybe they think, hey, we're on 5 platforms and we did it with a lot of efficiency because we only posted one. Is that penny wise, pound foolish?
It depends on the goal, right? If I've done that even on my own platforms, because it's only me. I need a way to get on all these different platforms. I need to be consistent, but I know for a fact if I do that, I'm not targeting each platform, each audience in a very specific way. I might just get very general. I get like likes in here, but probably not a lot of engagement because it's not tailored. So if it's one or two platforms like Twitter or LinkedIn, customizing it for each approach. One has a more corporate feel like LinkedIn. One might have a bit more opportunities to be a bit more, bold or something like that. Like, it really is up to the person to decide, but there are pros and cons and trade-offs with whatever route
So
you
the fact
choose.
that you've done it yourself is interesting. So you're not saying, hey, don't ever do it. Maybe it's fine because maybe you just need to get eyeballs. Maybe it's just, I need to blast this out. I don't need to spend a lot of time. I just need some exposure. That's interesting that you're saying you've done it yourself for your own firm. So that maybe it's not a huge mistake that companies can do it. It's okay.
Again, it's not necessarily a mistake or not, but when you do stuff and when you approach a strategy, know what those trade-offs might be,
Right.
and make sure that it aligns with your business goals. Because, I wasn't in there for conversion. I just personally, I was transitioning from TV to where I'm at now, and it was kind of scary, And so that was a personal thing where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to use this software to blast it out. And then I'm gonna start there. So that was my personal take. It wasn't necessarily about conversions or anything like that. So that's why I just say, talk with us. We'll give you the straight up answers because I'm not here to BS anyone. I'm here to give you data, facts, and also recommendations that would get you to where you want to be.
Is there something about how each platform gets older by nature, and then all the younger, cooler people always move to the next thing, right? So Facebook, I graduated college in 05. That's just when Facebook was starting to come out. You had to get the college invite. Then as soon as all the parents got on Facebook, it was like, see you later, we're all on Instagram. But then all the parents got on Instagram. It's like, okay, see you later, we're all on TikTok. But now all the parents are getting on TikTok. So see you later, we're all on, like, I don't know, like I'm too old now, no one's telling me where they are. Is there this chasing thing that you're noticing that by the time the companies get there, by default, the companies have gotten there because the younger people are, just as the younger people are leaving?
I think it's important to note that sounds like before even social, that just sounds like generational stuff
Right.
too,
Right.
right? It's like natural and instinctual or something. It's inherent that we do that for some reason. Like, I don't want to be where my mom's at. Like, I don't want her knowing what I'm doing, whatever.
Right.
So absolutely, yes, it does happen. But in terms of from the company standpoint, we know based on their approach, their way of using, how they've designed their app, they've designed the features, what their goals are. And generally speaking, like what age demographics they might target specifically. Like you could say TikTok, for sure younger, Gen Z and below. But at the same time, is if a company can recognize that and see, okay, well, we know that our current demographic is going to phase out. We should be ahead of that curve and really start thinking about some of these newer platforms and how those consumer bases will affect us down the line. So there's this like proactive approach that I would recommend because, things change. And, with social, it's about the relationships, and that takes time. And so you don't want to get too late in the game because it's going to be really noisy by the time you get there.
How important is the follower number, right? It's always like, I got to get followers because that's how I'm going to make money. If you're an influencer, for example, if you're a brand, everyone's obsessed with their follower count. Then there's the later questions can be the engagements, my likes, my retweets,
Sure.
my comments. How much in your data analysis of all of this are you putting stock in certain numbers? Like, what are the numbers that matter versus the numbers that maybe normal people don't realize don't matter as much?
From top priority down, I would say, and I'm probably missing a couple, and it depends on platforms what's available to you. Engagement for me personally is number one. Number two is like impressions and reach, and then three, follower count. Let's say just stick with those three. Engagement is really important because if I don't care about you, I'm not going to really respond or like or anything. I just kind of scroll past you. And that's really critical because that's who you're retaining. And we all know that retention is probably cheaper than acquisition. And so if we can use that retention of these current existing audiences to help build new audiences, that would be great. But if we're looking at follower count, that's a high acquisition, and there's also a market cap, right? We have a limited number, so there's a point where what is the ceiling? So we have to really keep that in mind, because it's not like this unlimited number. It's something to go, okay, well, what industry am I at? How many people are we talking about? And what is our goal realistically? Because there are some platforms that allow you to follow certain, users without actually following them. For example, Twitter, you can follow someone by adding, when I say follow, I mean like you can follow their
You put them on a list.
profile.
You can put
Yeah,
them on
you
a
put
list
them
and
on
you're
a
not a
list.
follower.
You create an alert for every time they post. You
Right.
create different types of components that help you follow them, but you're not actually like clicking the follow button. So there are some different parameters for each platform that you got to really consider of, well, what is our metric there? Because sometimes they might not want to be followers of us because of whatever reason. I mean, you're a journalist too, and I was one. For example, when I was on Twitter, I couldn't follow a particular politician over the other. It looked like I was swaying one over the other. So I would just create a bunch of lists, but I was still monitoring them. So it's just certain things like that we really need to consider. But I would elevate engagement so much more, because it's like, how many people actually care? How many people actually want to talk to us and ask questions and engage with us? That is a metric that I focus closely on.
So, do you find the biggest challenge for companies is they are not saying things that are engaging enough? Or do you find that a lot of companies are trying to be over engaging by trying to say, especially on Twitter, you see this, random brands are saying, little snarky things, controversial stuff, because they're trying to get engagement. And it's that balance of like, you can say the stuff and get engagement, but then you might have a story written up about you because you went too far. So where do you find, my guess is most brands are too conservative and you're trying to get them to, hey, be a little bit more human, be a little bit more engaging. My guess is they're too afraid, typically.
I think there's something to be said about the unknown, and there's that level of risk, right? So one, it's getting your message on lock. I've heard also Lauren Essex, who has been great on messaging. It's a critical component because it permeates through not only social, but PR, company culture, corporate communications, whatever. Messaging is super key. What does that look like for you, and what do you want to say? What do you want to bring to the table, and kind of craft it from there, versus saying like, we got to be doing this. We need more engagement. Let's focus back on the people that we are serving, the people that we're talking to. What do they want to hear? What inspires them? And then really weave that into our messaging, really, and create different personas for the different platforms, for the different, audiences, and the list goes on.
It sounds like a lot of work.
Well, yeah, of course.
It sounds difficult to keep track of different personas for different platforms and what is the company message. So the company message needs to be consistent, but each platform needs to have a different persona. So that's certainly this push and pull, right? It's like we need to be consistent, but we need to be unique on every platform. I assume that's why jobs like yours exist that basically didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of cultivating and creating your own opportunities, right? And that goes back to what's a problem to solve, how do you get there, all that jazz. When you say it's a lot of work, absolutely. It's also really fun. Like, I love looking at data points. I love looking at consumer behavior, because like it's a personal obsession potentially. It's like, why do we behave? Why do we say things? Why do we do things the way that we do? And that stems from me. Like, sometimes I look at myself, or like try to introspect a little bit and go, why did I just do that? How could I have done differently? So going into like more of the psychological aspect is a very interesting dynamic for me. And it's beneficial on the social side, because it gets you insight to how humans as a unit operate, what we consider in our decision-making process, and all that stuff. You probably didn't think that I would say that, but that's what intrigues me. And it is a lot of work, but it is also captivating and compelling and interesting and just So like just I'm in awe of the capabilities that we as humans can do and the things that we're capable of.
What are some of the data points, like the decision-making data points? Because I'm sure that's fundamentally what these companies are trying to get after, is we are trying to affect consumer decision-making by being on social media. That's fundamentally what it's about. So what are just some data points that you're seeing that you've been surprised about that you're sharing with firms? Like, hey, here's where the trends are. Here's an adjustment you need to make.
In terms of data points, I mean, there's fundamental stuff, right? Our basics, kind of like I forget the name of that pyramid, our basics, food, shelter, those financial components of it.
It's like Haslow's or Maslow's hierarchy pyramid.
Yes. So there's an element of that where you have to take a look at, our audience's basics met. We got to figure that out. What are they looking for, right? And then kind of go to the whole self-actualization stuff. Like, that's really critical. In terms of data points, we have to understand, like, what are they struggling with? What are they really looking to do? Or how can that company alleviate that? I don't know. Give me an example. Like Lucid. Let's go back to Lucid.
Back to Lucid. Here we go.
Back to Lucid. Like, here's a person. We could potentially create one persona. I'm a person who is really concerned about the future of our planet. So the green energy, the electric energy, all that stuff kind of mixes in. But I'm also a person who really loves luxury or something nice or whatever, right? And I have that price point to be able to meet that. So that's the persona we're thinking of, and cultivating that story with that persona in mind, because you need to know that the person has the basics and then some to be able to afford this car. We need to know that this person cares about the future and climate change and all that jazz. So we could tell the stories around that. We could tell about the luxury element. How are they going to feel? How are they going to experience this driving experience, this car, this product? It's more than just a car. That's the story that's being told. So it's really, I mean, I feel like a broken record, but it's really going into that audience, Eric. Like, who are you talking to? What do they give a damn about? What do they struggle with? What are their problems? How does the company help them get to where they want to go, but also help them in that journey to say, like, yo, we got you covered. Here's your problem. We'll help you out, and we'll take you so you can have that peace of mind and relax and drive off to the distance without having to charge for like 400 miles or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
That's really powerful. No, I was just sitting back listening. That was great, because all of a sudden it hit me. Oh, it's much more than just, hey, are you posting every day? Or are you posting 3 times? All of a sudden it was, oh, it's this journey that you're trying to help companies understand. You need to take people on this journey with you. And these are the touch points on that journey. And it is much bigger than number of followers. Did you put video and graphics in your post? Or all of a sudden this is
part of it.
Right.
It's part of it.
Right. But you're talking about the goal. This is the end goal of what you're trying to get to.
Yeah. Like I reverse engineering and whatnot. What's your goal? How do we get there? Let's work backwards and let's build on that journey. It's these touch points. It's how do you acquire them as a consumer? What does the onboarding process look like on the social media platform? And not only social, like, you've got newsletters and websites and all these different components to build the strategy. Then you've got to engage with them, right? What the heck does that look like? And last but not least, the retention of it. Like, all of that needs to be thought through in terms of the user experience, from the social side, from the marketing side, from the PR side, from the corporate communication side. It's just this big old bubble of puzzles that it's going to be super fun to collect and make that picture happen.
Do you have data points for certain clients, or share in general, your use of social media led to X% increase in revenues or sales or investors or whatever? Is there ever a tangible way of looking at that? Or are there too many factors going on? Because you're right. Hey, we've got our email newsletters and our TV ads and radio and print. Like, is it hard to tease out, here's exactly what social did for you?
That depends. right? Because it's how data is collected and where data is
Right.
centralized. And so when you have social on one platform, PR another platform, whatever stuff, it's kind of hard to identify whether that's the same user.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily a centric user ID. So I would say it's a little dicey. You can definitely make some causation correlation, like smart assumptions to it. But definitively, I haven't personally experienced. I'd probably defer to my counterpart on that. But I'll definitely look into it
Yeah, I'm
and I'll
just
follow
curious,
up
like
for the next
when
podcast.
companies when companies come and say, okay, we've been doing this for 12 months now, how do we measure what we got out of it? My guess was that it's very difficult, and I think that's part of the struggle that you have, or anyone in your position, anyone running a social media department, dealing with companies to say, okay, well, you have to do these things. You can't not do it, but I can't prove for you what you gained by doing it. I can just only know for a fact that if you
Oh,
don't do it, it's bad.
no. There are data points that's important. Like, the consistency level is important, the engagement level is important. And then if you integrate something like, for example, this is just one very basic. You have a post with a link that has a tracker on it, so you can see where it comes from. So you could have different data points to measure whether that actually did quote unquote convert in that capacity. But there's also the paid ad components, right? You can see a bit more definitively targeted approach of how that post is doing. So I wouldn't discount that at all in terms of social. It's definitely needed. But in terms of the specific question I interpreted was, how do you measure like all the different things and conversions? That gets harder from the data side of collecting and analyzing. But there is definitely data points enough to make suggestions, to make recommendations, and to make decisions off based on the fact that, conversions are happening, clicks are happening. That's an action, right? And the number of shares. Those are all very relevant data points to really look at.
So are you spending more of your time looking at social media sites and posting and all that, or are you spending more time just staring at mountains of spreadsheets and all data? Like, is a social media person's job nowadays really just a data job?
So currently, I'm kind of doing a couple of different things. Foundationally, I'm setting up our team for growth and scalability. God, I love it. It's like, what are we doing now? How much time is it taking? Where's room for efficiency? Because ultimately, our team is, for lack of a better word, kick ass. They are hungry, they're eager, they're curious. But my job is to really set out the foundation and make sure that they can soar, right? And so that's where I'm really focusing on right now, in addition to looking at reports, looking at trends, looking at ways to also empower our staff to be able to be better at their jobs. So it's a few different things that I'm juggling, but there is an element of that. There's definitely lots of elements of really understanding what's transitioning, looking at press releases, looking at company website, what's an update. So there's a lot. There's a lot. I can't really necessarily summarize all that I'm doing, but I can tell you that I freaking love it.
Without naming names, tell me your next 24 hours. What are the kinds of meetings that you're having in the next 24 hours? Just to give us a sense, a glimpse of, okay, this is what Mega does on a standard day.
Oh, I did create my stand-ups, right? So it's meetings with existing clients, with team members, to make sure that they feel empowered and supported. That's very important for our culture. We talk about trends and campaigns for the next month, potentially 2 months, because we want to project and really figure out a forecast. We've got meetings for new businesses, renewals. It's I don't know. It's so cool that I get to do this, Eric. It is a lot of different elements of different things, and from business to social to leadership. It's this mixture of, I wake up and I get to do this. I'm a little tired sometimes, but man, how refreshing is it that I get to help out other people carve out their careers, and also companies achieve their goals through social.
How
It's kind
much
of like freaking a dream job, man.
How much time do you spend just personally on social for yourself?
For myself?
Like just, just
Gosh.
checking out, oh, I'm going to get home decor, right? Just your own just personal, just things for my dogs, right? Like just your own personal leisure time on social, or is
Oh
it
my
just all
gosh.
mixed into work at this point?
No, there's a level of element of the ones that I spend most time on. LinkedIn, number one. Number two, Instagram. And I'll tell you a little bit more why. Twitter and Pinterest. LinkedIn, because I find so much value seeing other people's like thought leadership articles, ways that they're finding, they're changing jobs and they're improving on their journey. Those are really cool things. On Instagram, that's dog stuff. I don't buy anything on Instagram because I've gotten, scammed on a couple things, but I look at certain ideas to then shop on Amazon or whatever platform that I can go on. But looking at dogs and looking at friends, looking at all that, all the different things that I need to catch up on or feel the need to catch up on. But Twitter and Pinterest is where I kind of stalk things like different movements, different news or whatever. It's just for me to get up to speed since it's so quick. But I also need to follow the right people so I know it's the accurate information. And the last but not least, Pinterest. From project management ideas to brand designs, from presentations and elements like that. I go to Pinterest because it's so visual and I'm a visual person. I don't create presentations with lots of word. I like being captivated by, hey, let me tell you the story by showing you X, Y, and Z video or a picture or whatever. So those are my main platforms.
You're busy. Did you see yourself as a TV reporter ever saying, okay, X years from now, I'm going to be doing this? Like is this just all a surprise how you ended up here?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I told you a little bit that I was, I came from Indonesia. I'm Chinese Indonesian. I've got a very interesting family.
What age were you when you came to America?
7. It was during the 1998 riots. We moved to Jakarta. We moved from Jakarta on the premise on a vacation. But before leaving, I had some, talk with my family. They're always saying go into law school, business, medical, the typical stuff. And then later down the line, when I said, hey, I want to try communications, what feedback that I got was that I was going to fail, like flat out. So no, I don't think that I've never thought that this was possible. But I'm a big proponent, again, of creating those opportunities and really reframing the way that I think, the way I approach things, because my family didn't come to the States for no reason. They came here because they made a sacrifice for myself and for the next generation to do something with that sacrifice, right? I'm not going to let that go to waste. So I do definitely feel like there's a bit of a responsibility there on my part, but also to really inspire whoever I interact with.
Megan, this has been amazing. I could talk all day, but this is amazing. I know you got all these meetings, you got so many clients, they need your help. They got to figure out the world of social. And yeah, it's just this growing landscape right now, right? It's just, there's more and more platforms showing up. People are moving around where they're using it. Every platform is changing their rules and changing their features. So even if you knew a platform a year ago, it's not the same now. So it's good for you because you stay busy, keeps you always occupied. Meg, I appreciate the time. I didn't even know that about your story. So I appreciate you sharing that, your journey.
Absolutely.
Getting to this point.
There's so much to learn, and it's, reach out, ask questions, and we'll take care of you.
Where do people find you? Give us your social handle, since it's all about social media.
Well, my email is mega@bospar.com. You can give me any nickname.
So
and then
email,
my social.
All your social handles. You're giving us an email address.
Well, you got to have you have to give a direct line, because social, there's so many to keep track. Email's the best way. But I've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all Mega Jewell.
Easy to find you. Meg, I appreciate the time. This is great. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.